Right now it's open enrollment, at least it is for me. And open enrollment, for those of you who don't know, is when you have the opportunity to change or make adjustments in your benefits, whether or not you're selecting a new insurance policy or you're adding a beneficiary to a particular plan. And I think oftentimes when we look at our insurance premiums, we also need to look at when it's time to possibly change your therapeutic partners. And I use therapeutic partners just kind of like an all over catch term for doctors, nurses, chiropractors, whether or not it's your massage therapist, whoever is helping you and assisting you to take care of your body. So if you're new here, my name is Sabrina, and I support proactive, longevity minded adults who are looking or to take control of their health and reduce their reliance on the healthcare system. Um, I think all of us have had some type of experience at a doctor's office at some point. And I know more times than often that I have been in a position where I didn't feel like I was definitely that I wasn't being heard, but also the communication just wasn't there. So, what do you do and how do you navigate that? I think that's important. I think a lot of times people give away their power when they go to the doctor's office. I don't know whether it's scareful attitude or idea that just because it's a doctor that they're a person in authority, and they are for their practice, but that doesn't mean that there's a person of authority over your life. And I have seen and I have experienced the detriment of someone relinquishing their control to a doctor to navigate and steward their care without them having some type of input on how things go along. I think you may agree that you've heard this statement before, that why go to the doctor if you don't want to listen to them? Well, just because someone has a degree and have some acronyms behind their name doesn't mean that they're the most knowledgeable and the person to work with you. They may be knowledgeable, but they may not be the person that's going to actually help you. I've seen people take the advice of doctors and lost their life or had some type of response. Whether I've seen someone lose their sight, I've seen people have unnecessary surgeries, or didn't take something that should be addressed more aggressively serious because the doctor told them not to worry about. But then you also have the good side. You have some people who are therapeutic partners are definitely the extension of the hand of Jesus. So I think it can run the gamut, and you just have to find out what works best for you. One of the things that I want to say is that if you understand your identity in Christ, you know that God gave us to take care of those things He has placed here on earth. One being you, and you are the steward for your own health, and you just can't release that to anybody. You just have to stay in your position. So, how do you steward conversations with therapeutic partners who are clearly not communicating well? I think that one of the first things that you can do is set the tone for the conversation. And one of the ways is to do that is not being, the goal is not to be aggressive. Um, you kind of have to monitor your personality, because some people are very bold and upfront, and some people are very passive aggressive. I'm kind of bold and upfront. It doesn't mean that I have to be aggressive. I can be direct and calm. And a lot of times, being direct can come off offensive to people. Okay, they take it as you're being mean just because you're being direct. And so, some of the things that I would say is, when the appointment begins, maybe the doctor comes in and introduce himself to you. You can say something like this: I want to make sure I understand everything clearly today. Thanks for walking through things with me. And one of the things that we'll do, because most patients are not going to do this, it's going to share that the doctor that you care and that you're opening the lines of communication. Now, one thing I want to say about going and working with therapeutic partners, you, as well as the doctor or whatever practitioner you're working with, has the right and the ability to terminate the relationship at any time. So I think the biggest mistake that we make as patients or consumers is that we stay in a place a little bit too long. right? You think that you have to continue to work with this person for the rest of your life. Everybody is not going to be a life partner, or they're not going to carry you through every position of your life. And you have to be willing to separate from people when whatever they're doing no longer serves you. So the same thing with doctors. Doctors can stop your care anytime. They don't have to see you in a practice. They can see you today and not see you tomorrow. You can try to make an appointment with today. They can refuse making an appointment. You as the patient have the same right. You don't have to continue your care forever with a specific practitioner. And I think all of us need to get that in our head. I think sometimes we stay in situations too long and it ends up being to our detriment, and we get offended because a doctor don't want to see us and that type of thing. Now, if it's something that's discriminatory, yes, you have legal action against that. No doctor is going to come out and say, I don't want to see an African American female as a patient, because they know they can be sued by it. But you can go into their office and kind of feel the weight of the environment. And you can tell a lot of male doctors, and depending on what descent they're from, they don't want to talk to females because they think you should be quiet and keep your mouth shut. That's just the way it is. And if you know that, just go on to another doctor's office. Don't sit there and be abused. You're paying your money for somebody to mistreat you and abuse you. That's just not the way to go. So just understand, God has placed you in a position to be a steward over your own body. The second thing that you can do if you feel like you're not being heard when you go to the doctor's office is ask for simpler language. Okay. Sometimes doctors talk around the answer and they never really get to the point. Well, so you may ask the question, well, how long I have to be on this medication? Well, I think you're going to have to be on it for the rest of your life, but they never tell you why. So if there's a problem that I have to be on antibiotics, let's say antibiotics for the rest of my life, that's an issue, that's a concern. So they're talking around the answer. So something that you can do to anchor a standard with that particular doctor, you can say, can you explain that in simpler terms so I understand exactly what the plan is? Because a lot of times doctors will go through this whole process of what they want you to do, this, and this, and this, but you don't understand it. You're too embarrassed to ask, can you explain this to me in simpler terms? So you now can actually execute or whatever plan that they have given you. But asking for someone to explain something in simple terms, I think I heard someone say that when you're communicating, especially in writing, that you want to make sure that you can communicate in a way that a 4-year-old can understand it. So that's very simple terms. But oftentimes, if you show that you have an understanding because you've done your research prior to the appointment about you, and the doctor understands that you understand what he's saying, then you can expound the conversation, meaning we can get a little bit more advanced in our communication. We can raise the cognitive load in our communication process, right? We don't have to keep things so basic. But just for grins and giggles, you want to keep things very simple. Then you're being very professional, but you're being very firm. I want this in plain English because I really want to do what you're telling me to do, but I just want to understand it. And oftentimes, when you can't explain something in simple terms, it really can lead to the fact that you really don't understand what you're talking about. You're really trying to confuse the audience that's actually listening to you. Okay. Doctors they do run a clinical practice, but they default to clinical terms. And a lot of times they do that because they know that you don't understand it. So request or require them to speak to you in very simple and plain terms. Now, some people will try to be derogatory because you say that, because they'll think that you're uneducated, and then you may have to prove that you're not. But you want the explanation to be in simple terms because you really want to open a communication with this person and you don't want to leave there with any misunderstanding. Okay. What is the third thing that you can do? You can use power questions. Many times what I've noticed in, like, when I go to a doctor's appointment, and this can be a medical doctor, this could be your chiropractor, this can be your massage therapist, this can be your esthetician, this can be your dentist. It does not matter in what setting. One of the things that I know is that doctors respond to the energy of the question. And what I mean by that, most doctors are poor communicators. I need to stop saying doctors. Like I said, whoever is helping you steward your care, therapeutic partners, they are poor communicators, and they have dealt with people quite often who don't want them to communicate with them and don't want them to really get into a deep conversation. So they kind of get used to that and accustomed to that. And so I'm going to share with you some things to help you guide kind of unclear communications. Something like this. So if the doctor says, well, you have fibromyalgia or you have IBS, well, those are all catch terms, right? That's an old overall catch. And it means nothing, but it means nothing, but it's saying something. It doesn't mean it really anything, but it's saying something. So what you could say is, what could be causing this? What are the next steps? Is there a root cause test we should consider? That's a good one. Is there a root cause? If the doctor is saying that you need to go on medication, before we go on medication, can I have an MRI? Let's not guess that this is what it is. Can I have an MRI? Can we get x-rays done? Can we get a root cause test to find out whether or not this is really the problem? Okay, then they'll start talking about insurance and all this other kind of nonsense. Okay, what lifestyle and nutrition changes could support this? This is very important because I see this happen all the time, especially like cardiologists or endocrinologists, someone who has a cardiometabolic problem. This is why cardiometabolic diseases is so fascinating to me. They will put you on medication, but they won't tell you how to make the lifestyle changes with your nutrition. So let's say, for instance, hypothetically, you go to the cardiologist. They find out that you have a high level of calcium in your arteries. All right. Then they tell you you need to go on a statin. That's very common. But they then don't tell you now how you don't continue down this same road. They don't refer you to a nutritionist. They don't talk about your diet, but they're willing to put you on a statin, which statin drugs can help, but they surely can create a problem. But what did you do or what lifestyle did you lead to get you in this position? And how do I get out of it? Same thing with diabetes. There are a lot of people who are taking an insulin right now who really don't know how to curtail their diet in a way that they can possibly not take insulin at some point. To me, that is malpractice, in my opinion. Now, it's a difference if you don't want to take the advice or the information, but it's another thing when the advice and the information is not being given to you. Okay? Taking insulin over a long period of time. First of all, if you're a diabetic, a type 2 diabetic, by the time that it is found out that you're a type 2 diabetic, you've probably been insulin resistant probably over 10 years. So the damage that has been done to your body in that time frame is so great, right? Now you're on insulin, but you're not changing the habit that created the insulin resistance. Okay, so usually a person who is a diabetic, at some point they're going to have high blood pressure. Not all, but most will have high blood pressure. That's another problem. And a lot of things with high blood pressure and diabetes can be changed and can be improved by changing your lifestyle. Number one, your nutrition and activity. Nutrition is going to be key, but then activity as well, lifestyle changes. So if they're not recommending you, how do you change the root cause? How do you know when you keep taking this medicine? How do you change? Do you want to keep taking medication for the rest of your life? And I know in some cases that has to be that, but not in all cases. Okay. And then what should you monitor? If you have high blood pressure, don't you think you should be monitoring your blood pressure at home? You should be monitoring your blood pressure at home if you don't have high blood pressure. I check my blood pressure every morning. I don't have high blood pressure. But for God's sakes, if you have high blood pressure and you're on medication, wouldn't it be how do you go to the doctor's office every day to have your blood pressure checked? Who's going to have time to do that? Isn't it easy to buy a blood pressure monitor in your home and check it when you get up in the morning and before you go to bed or middle of the day? It's not a big deal. Isn't it easier for you to wear a continuous glucose monitor if you're taking insulin to monitor your insulin throughout the day continuously? These are things that you can do that's simply, what can I do to monitor this? All right. So, although you're the patient, these questions now put you in a leadership role. And I'm telling you, if you do this, you will see the character of your therapeutic partner because many times these questions are going to offend them. It really will offend them. If you look on any Google, just Google endocrinologists in your area and watch the list of doctors that pop up. You know why? Because that's a money gag. If you look and go online, look in your area, find how many dialysis centers are in your area. That should tell you a lot. Okay. And here's the other thing. When your physical health changes, you're going to require a lot more from your doctor. If you take control and just use some of these questions I'm saying, you will take authority when you go into the doctor's office, and you won't stay with these sorry people. I thank God for the doctors who are truly an extension of Jesus' hands, but you won't stay with these sorry people when they're mutilating you and they're causing your health to decline because they really don't care whether or not you improve, because you are a billable expense. They're making money off of you. They're filing claims with the insurance company. But there are doctors who truly want to do the will of God. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you not taking your authority. And I'm talking about you continuing to go into someone else that's causing you to lose your own quality of health. Number four, what is some of the things that you can do when your doctor is not effective to communicate you, or you feel communicate with you, or you feel like you're not being heard? Confirm the plan before you leave. So this reduces the chance of miscommunication later, because they can easily say that I told you this and you say I didn't understand that. I meant to do this, but I didn't do that. Okay. So we're retesting this in 3 months and I'll work on blank in the meantime to correct it. So ask them, okay, how often are we going to retest? What do I need to do when I get home? How do I follow through with the instructions that you have given to me? A lot of people walk in too much pride and you don't want to ask the necessary questions to help you move forward. So then you can say, I want to understand, my responsibility. Do I need to follow up in the next few days? Do I need to do X, Y, and Z? How do I do this? And so on and so forth. This is how a health CEO communicates with their doctor. This Topics like this is so important to me, and it may not be a big deal for a lot of people who may watch this video, but it's so important to me because I've seen people lose their life by messing around with the wrong therapeutic partner, and you're not taking authority. If you're taking insulin and you're not wearing a continuous glucose monitor, you're failing. Okay, because if you're taking your blood sugar, let's say if you're taking your blood glucose right now, that's only telling you what your reading is at that moment. But if you're taking insulin, you need to know what your blood sugar and how it's regulating throughout the day. And sometimes doctors are not going to recommend you to do this. The reason why they're not going to recommend to do this, a lot of times continuous glucose monitors are not paid for by the insurance company. They're not. So if you don't really want to improve, you don't want to get out. Who wants to keep sticking themselves day in and day out if they don't have to? And all you can do is change your diet and that'll get you off insulin. If that's an option for you, don't you want to try that option? If you want to get off high blood pressure medication, if you change your diet, if that's an option for you, don't you want to do that? Do you want to continue down that road? And so number 5 is you have to know when it's time to transition. Okay. Sometimes the person that you start with is not going to be the person that's going to carry you through the remainder of your life's journey. And I think sometimes we get attached to people. I've seen people go to doctor's office and they make these doctors their friends. I think that's a mistake. I think we can be kind. And I've been to one of my therapeutic partners I've been going to for almost 30 years. I don't know his wife's name. I don't know his children's name. Don't care. When I go into his office, I'm very respectful and I'm very kind, but I don't want to do anything that's going to keep this particular practitioner or any of my practitioners from doing the job to the best of their ability for me. So I don't care about his personal life. I care about the quality in his skills as he takes care of me. He doesn't need to know my personal business. He doesn't need to know anything about my personal life outside of me coming in and being the patient for whatever that particular um, whatever that particular screening I need for that specific case or whatever the case may be. But anything beyond that, I don't get involved in that. But I hear so many times people say, my doctor is my friend, or this person is my friend. Well, I don't pay my friends to help me take care of my health. I just don't do that. And I think we blur the lines sometimes. Sometimes doctors, they try to get too personal. Don't do that. If you are doing what you're supposed to do, and you're taking care of me and doing what you're supposed to do, you don't have time to get into all that other stuff. A lot of times people start talking about their wife and their children and what their kids are doing and all this other kind of stuff when they're not doing everything they need to do for yourself. And if you're a person who has wisdom and insight and you know about taking care of your own self, taking care of your health is a full-time job. It is a full-time job. It is a full-time investment. From the top of your head to the sole of your feet, it is a full-time investment. You don't have time to play around with people about your health and get involved with all these crazy conversations. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to plan your meals and cook them and prepare them and do all these different. It takes a lot to get up and go work out. Although it's a necessary evil, you don't typically want to do it every day, but you do it. You make the time to do those things that are necessary to make sure that you're in the best health possible. So I don't have time to take out of my schedule to wait until in a doctor's office in a waiting room to go back and talk to the doctor about his wife or her wife, her husband and her children and where they're going on vacation. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I'm saying the expectation, you need to have your own personal life separate from these things and make sure everything has its own pocket. Be friendly, be respectful, but when the conversation overflows too much about them or too much about your personal side outside of what you're seeing that therapeutic partner for, I believe you'll find someone who's truly not giving you the best care. It's just my opinion. Okay, so what can you do now? When you've asked the questions, you're trying to figure out when is it time for you to leave. And I just shared with you when I think, in my opinion, when things get too personal. I don't believe they're doing the best. And I know sometimes you may have known somebody from high school and you go to them and maybe they're your banker now. I still think that there needs to be a professional courtesy in place. There are boundaries you don't cross. And if those boundaries are open, you need to be the one to open it from your side, not them to you, because you're paying them for a particular time slot and you're paying them for a particular service. So you need to know when it's time to transition. And I think I just gave you some cues of when that time has come. And you can say something like this: I think I benefit from a provider with a more proactive approach. Thank you for your time. You can say something like that. You can say something similar to that. It's no drama, it's no disrespect. I promise you, if you say something like that, they're gonna be offended and they're gonna be alarmed because most patients won't do that. And then you don't want the conversation to become emotional. You don't want to raise your voice and things like that. You don't want to get in your feelings, right? All you're doing is taking care of yourself. Because I promise you, once you don't benefit them, they'll get rid of you. Just saying. So at the end of the day, it's not about being combative with someone. It's about being direct. It's about being professional and not becoming emotional. But it's about you taking your rightful position as a client or as a patient, however you want to term it, and you're doing the best thing that you can for your health. You deserve, if you're going to go to a therapeutic partner, no matter what area of your health they're helping you steward over. It could be your hairstylist, it could be your wig maker, it could be someone, your makeup artist. All these people are doing something to help you improve your body, your health, your appearance, and so on and so forth. If you're not being respected and the questions that you have are not being answered, I think you have the right to move on. Today, I want to leave you with a free gift. And I'll make sure that once this video renders, I'll put it down in the description. It is the Confident Patient Communication Guide. All you have to do is put in your email and you can download it. But if you want further connection, what you can do is click the link that I put also in the description, where I can help you review your goals and create a roadmap so that you never walk into another doctor's office unprepared. So If this blesses you, make sure that you leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Remember, it is your health, your voice, and your leadership is what's going to steward your care. Be blessed, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.